1. Welcome back, Kirkman. After graduating from Boston's Emerson College in June 1996 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater Arts, I moved back into my parents' house. There are few to no well-paying jobs available to a girl who minored in rolling around on the floor collecting dust bunnies on her sweatpants, otherwise known as modern dance. I wish I'd had a really good reason for moving back home, like my friend Jason from freshman year in college. It was rumored that Jason took too much acid and also became possessed by the devil on the same night. This rumor started because he dropped 2 tabs while doing a seance around a pentagram that Mick, his practicing Satanist roommate, had burned into their dorm room rug. After the devil possessed him and/or the bad trip never wore off, folklore has it that Jason was forever unable to speak but couldn't stop laughing, like some kind of demonic hyena. Jason left school during his first semester and moved into his mom's basement, where he sat staring at the wall and listening to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon most of the day, except for the time he spent at his part-time job at his hometown library. I know that story sounds implausible. What library would employ a loud laugher? Anyway, I didn't have an excuse for moving back home that I could pin on my mom and dad either, such as, it turned out that my mom wasn't a hypochondriac and she actually did have a fatal heart murmur, and it was her dying wish for me to move back into my childhood bedroom that was still covered with floral psychedelic wallpaper from the 1970s. That would have been a good one, except for the fatal heart murmur part. It's not like I hadn't made plans for my post-college life. I had. My plan was to become a famous television actress. The type who could play younger because as a 21-year-old, I still looked 16. Just like everyone on Beverly Hills 90210. Well, except for Andrea. Also a realist, I also had a backup plan, and that was to become a famous actress on Broadway. I'd certainly put in some semi-quality time training to be an actress. I spent every morning in acting class putting my hand on my solar plexus to find my emotion and then breathing from my diaphragm. I usually found only a cough when I breathed deeply from my diaphragm because I'd developed a pack-a-day habit of smoking Camel Lights. I inhaled the acting class air like a young, hopeful girl, then hacked and wheezed out phlegm like a longshoreman whose emphysema gets exacerbated by his seasonal pneumonia. I was convinced that simply because I attended college and majored in acting, I would walk out of the not a serious acting conservatory Emerson College and straight into my own trailer in Hollywood, or some backstage door on 42nd Street. The details were not mine to work out. That's what acting professors were for. This was before I realized that my acting professors were themselves actors who also thought at one point in their misguided youth that they'd be famous. I don't think any of them ever got offered a role in The Godfather and told Coppola, "Thanks for thinking of me, but I'm going to have to turn this role down. My real passion is to wake up every morning and teach a bunch of hungover college kids the concept of sense memory." In all my years of college, I never really sat down and got to thinking, okay, so how do I take this class where I do monologues from Equus and turn it into a career? I was usually busy thinking about the cute Kurt Cobain lookalike who was always sitting alone in the cafeteria near the cereal. Turns out that the reason he looked so much like Kurt Cobain was that he was also a heroin addict. I recently looked him up on Facebook, and now he's a chubby, short-haired, button-up shirt-wearing computer programmer, married with 2 kids. I mourn this outcome more than if he had OD'd. In the back of my mind, I just assumed that there existed a special red phone in the dean's office at Emerson. In my limited knowledge of how the world actually worked, I decided that this phone I made up in my head existed solely for placing and receiving calls to and from Hollywood. I pictured a kingmaker with a Santa Claus-esque workshop running Hollywood, who kept a master list. Instead of who's naughty and who's nice, his list had names of who's talented and who's not. I pictured my acting teacher calling this Hollywood Santa and saying something like, "Hi, this is Judith Renner. I'd like to report that Jen Kirkman just made herself cry in my Acting 101 class. Yes, she was doing a monologue about being a single mother, but she used the image of her favorite dead pet as a catalyst for the tears. She was also speaking from her diaphragm and not mumbling. Oh, and she also nailed this really difficult Fosse dance move that involves crooking her pinky finger and sitting on a chair. Can we move her up on the talented list? Great. We'll be in touch once she nails a Scottish accent, specifically the Shetland Isles."